We have to be strong. We have to be one. We can fight together.
Kakobit is a platform that was put together by Aleja Aliko and Herbert Wigwing about 7 weeks back. What had happened was we, on the Aliko Dangote Foundation side, had already made commitments to the Nigerian Center for Disease Control about how we were going to support the epidemic. After the first case broke out, if you remember, on February 27th, the very next day, the NCDC put out a incident action plan, which was costed at 1.6 billion naira. What ended up happening is that, of course, we needed a lot more than 1.6 billion naira. And so the private sector decided that they should put their resources together, led by Aleja Aliko and Herbert. And so that's how Kakobit was born. So they sat together, they said maybe we should invite other private sector actors to join us, and then Kakobit was born. So Amici, who's here, and his team came up with the logo, came up with a structure, and we decided, this is how we should kind of try to run this organization. And so that's how Kakobit was born. So we've been involved from the very beginning, and you're just seeing us talk today because we're finally ready to discuss and to explain what we've been working on. And so right now, Kakovid has become a platform with over 50 contributing organizations, and we're principally working on three things. The first one is to increase Nigeria's testing capacity. How do we get more tests into the country? Now, we went through a lot of research and understanding about tests. You'll hear about rapid test kits, or why can't we just test people in 30 minutes? Those kinds of tests do not work. Their efficacy is not proven, and therefore we're not using those in Nigeria. We use molecular tests in Nigeria. Molecular tests means that they take a swab of your throat or your nose, and they mix it with a chemical reagent and get a result. So that's a much longer process than the quote-unquote rapid test kits. But just so everybody's clear, we don't have any globally validated rapid test kits as of today. Therefore, Nigeria isn't trying to play and use quote-unquote rapid testing kits whose validity is not proven. So our goal is to expand testing in an intelligent way. There's only three ways that we're doing testing right now in Nigeria, all of them molecular-based. The principal thing to note is that as of now, as of our involvement, we've been able to increase Nigeria's access to testing platforms from Roche, from Cepheid, and when Abbott is eventually ready, we'll be ordering supplies from them too. But for instance, with Roche, Nigeria was on track to receive 38,000 kits. We, as Kakobit, have ordered 250,000 testing kits. That means we'll be able to increase Nigeria's capacity to test. Cepheid is another organization. They also have come up with a COVID-19 cartridge, a testing cartridge. We're also ordering 250,000 of those cartridges too. Our goal is to increase testing in Nigeria to 1 million tests. So this is the number one thing that Kakobit is doing. The second thing is when you test people, you have to be able to isolate them if, God forbid, they turn out to be positive. And so in our first phase, we've set up 6 isolation centers: Lagos, Port Harcourt, Kano, Enugu, Abuja, and Maiduguri, really 7, in the 6 geopolitical zones of our country. Those test centers are, some of them are ready to commission, others are in the process of being commissioned, but in the next 2 weeks, all the 6 centers of phase 1 will be ready to be rolled out. Phase 2 is another 20 states, and phase 3 is the remaining 11 states. The third thing that we're doing is palliatives in the form of food. So we have been aware and realizing, and we live here, seeing the distress that some of our country folk are dealing with. And so we decided to do a palliatives program. So the food that we're distributing is to 1.7 million families. That number was arrived by taking our population of Nigeria, 200 million people, taking the bottom 5%, and then we know that the average number is 6 people per household, and therefore we end up with 1.667 million households. So our goal is to distribute food to all these 1.7 almost million families over the next month. And I'm saying next month because you can imagine the logistics of these hundreds and hundreds of trucks that need to go into each and every state, into each and every ward to reach the vulnerable people. It's going to take us we're expecting about a month at the most to complete the distribution, starting in the next week to 10 days.
We are all impacted by what is happening out there. In modern lifetime, we've never experienced this at all. We are facing a challenge that is also unclear how it should actually be dealt with. And it's in times like this that we need to get together and we need to stand together. We are better together, we can do things faster together, and as MTN, we looked at this coalition and we realized that as the private sector, we couldn't stand on the sideline and not get involved in the fight against this pandemic. And Herbert phoned and Aluka Dangote asked, and we said, we are part of this. So for those private organizations that haven't joined us yet, my first request is to you. Please join us. The more we are, the stronger we can be, the quicker we can get to a position where we can deal with this issue. And to everybody out there, we've got a strong team of people looking at what we can do. You've just had a high-level view of what we intend rolling out. I'd like to believe this is just the start of what we can do. But for me, it's all really in the one little word that you will see at the top: staying alive together.
Thank you all for coming. First of all, we need to fight the pandemic. And we need to fight it to zero. There are different schools of thought. Some people say it will never be zero, but at least we can get it into something that can be contained. But just as we're doing all of that, and Zwera went into great detail in explaining the fact that we need to be also careful of the social issues. We can lock people up for 2 weeks, we can lock people for 1 month, we can lock people for 6 weeks. What are we going to do about hunger? Which that becomes what they call stomach virus. Some people will tell you that before Corona gets to them, they would have been dead from hunger. So we have to be solving the same problem. They are intertwined. All right? Social distancing, physical distancing, etc., without providing for people, all right, to eat is a big, big issue. So we're doing that at exactly the same time. The third level, which is also important, and which we're already sharing at some level at CACOVID, is around thought leadership and the fact that we need to think about life after COVID-19. There are several businesses that are going through incredibly difficult times, and of course, getting them started after all of this can be a lot of pressure. So we're also speaking to government, the appropriate agencies. What do we need to do, all right, to ensure that after COVID-19, life can even start? So you can imagine that you have 3 levels of problems at exactly the same time, which you have to think about. In some countries, you can give people money for their business while you lock them down. But so what? What happens after 1 week? They've spent the money. The business, what happens to them after COVID, if you get the point I'm trying to make? So it's not something any of us has experienced. But thank God for CACOVID. It's made up of several great institutions, great leaders in our country, spanning the financial services sector, foods, manufacturing, sector as well, retail, several people, too many to mention individually, which Zwera was going to share. And apart from that, there are several others whose names have not come in, who are not donating a lot of money. But like we said, every amount of money is important. The central bank governor has said it time and again. We are absolutely transparent in how we are handling these resources. And I think at the end of April, we'll have the first audit so that people can see how money was utilized and all of that. And we keep doing it until we finish this whole endeavor. But I just thought I should thank you all for coming. It's important. You are critical stakeholders in our environment. You can help in sharing the information. You can help as far as literacy is concerned and for what people need to do for us to stay alive together. Thank you very much.
There have been issues and concerns that people had been left behind. And I know that specifically this coalition wants to make sure that there are no people left behind. So if you could give us some information on the measures that you're putting into place to make sure that the designated people do get these resources that have been earmarked for them.
We've had to go through some established structures. And the way the government is defined, you have the state government, you have the local government, and then you have the wards. Okay? The bottom of the pyramid you typically see at the ward level. Now, you have 774 local governments in the country. What we decided to do was to break down the entire country into different states, and we have participating institutions responsible for handling each particular state. So for each state, you would have 2 or 3 CACOVID members who would stick to a particular local government. So let us take Lagos, for instance, and it had 40 local governments. It means you have 120 CACOVID members because 3 for each local government working with the local government chairman, of course, under the supervision of the governor. All right, and they would make sure that the food items are delivered right at the ward level. Because when you have 3 people with the local government chairman, chances are 80% to get to the ward.
I just want you to put a figure to all of this. How much have you spent so far? And how much are you really planning to spend? How much have you generated up till now? Kakofi.
Ikira, I'm going to give you an answer in broad terms. Okay, because it's an ongoing effort. All right, to feed the bottom of the pyramid costs a lot of money. A lot of money. You can begin to imagine what it costs. All right, but roughly perhaps about 25 billion. Okay, to set up all these isolation centers cost about 16, I don't know, to 20 billion, depending on what you're putting inside. Those are the rough estimates. But as we get on ground, we see what is happening. We see that there is need to raise more money, etc. And we've not raised all the money, so it's a continuous effort. But are we going to succeed in the endeavor? The answer is absolutely yes. You can take that to the bank. And we're still making purchases for the food and all, but it's a huge effort. And we're getting more and more private sector participants sign on by the day. And this, by the way, the reason for this call is to reach out to more people who understand that Nigeria belongs to all of us. All right. If we are sick here, we cannot travel anywhere else. If there's one good thing about this COVID, is that we have to start solving our problems together as a people.